Welcome. My name is James Rupe. We're going to start the blockchain class. I just wanted to let you know this is exactly what I would expect to see in a group that was interested in blockchain. It's a very niche environment at the time. It's hard, it's complex, there's a lot of misinformation, and so a lot of people are kind of shying away from it. So I welcome you guys. You guys are the champions because you're looking into something that most people won't even consider at this point. So congratulations. Today our focus, and like I said, we're starting with grassroots information because we really want people to understand it at a basic level. So we're going to really talk about value today because really that's what this is all about. The drop of cryptocurrency came with the first minted coin, and we call the first coin on a chain that's minted the Coinbase. And that's what Coinbase did. They named themselves after that and they started a company. But the Coinbase is actually the first token minted on a network. And does anybody know what Bitcoin's coin says on its Coinbase coin? Because there's a message on it. Did you guys know that? Okay, look it up. You guys can Google it. What's the message on the first Bitcoin? And what you'll find is it's actually a reference to the government bailing out banks because banks did bad deeds and caused a housing market crash. And they did it highly sophisticated. They lobbied Congress for years. They spent millions of dollars. They got their way, and then they were able to manipulate the housing market by selling loans that they couldn't afford to back. And they were able to sell them with very low requirements, which meant an inevitable crash. And they made millions, billions, and many lost their homes. And so this very act triggered a movement, and the movement was Bitcoin. How can we gain wealth? How can we retire if the money that we're given is getting debased? And that's very important because a lot of people out here are like, I want to open a business and I want to make money. What money do you want to make and why do you want money? You really don't want money. You really want the means to purchase things. Okay, money is a gateway to get you something that you want. And so that gateway needs to have certain attributes. If somebody gave you a banana and said, hey, there's your pay, and you waited more than 10 days to spend that banana, it'd be a rotten banana, right? It wouldn't be worth much anymore. And so that banana debases itself over time. It gets rotten and it's no good. And that's pretty much what's happening in a way to our dollar. But the dollar itself was never a form of value in the first place. It was a representative of gold when the dollar was released. And so what we're going to do is we're going to talk about gold versus Bitcoin, not gold versus the dollar, gold versus Bitcoin, because gold is value. And Bitcoin is starting to compete for the concept of value itself. And if it's going to compete with the concept of value for the first time in 6,000 years, we probably need to look and see what's going on and maybe even get some. And so our goal today is to go over some of this stuff, and hopefully by the time you guys are done, if you're interested enough, you can meet with me and we'll do a boot camp and we can teach you how to create a private wallet. We'll teach you how to secure digital assets that are fixed supply, and we'll show you how to move those assets into your own private wallet. And that's really what the new world is going to look like. It's going to be every one of us being empowered by holding our own value and supporting the things that we truly wish to support. All right, so welcome and thank you for the class. So we're gonna kind of go over the value of gold, and we're gonna look at the historical value of gold. So first of all, gold is a reliable store of value. Gold's been trusted for thousands of years through many governments, countries, and times. And the reason why it is valuable is because it's scarce. We can't just go somewhere, you, me, in a lab, and we can't create gold. It actually takes the implosion of a star to produce the heat to create gold. And so right now, gold is a limited item, which means we can put value on top of it, and somebody can't do what's called double spend, or spend what is not there or what value doesn't exist. Gold has universal acceptance. It's a hedge against inflation because you can't make more, right? And it's diverse and portable. And there are physical challenges with gold. Because it's heavy. Has anybody picked up a bar of gold? Kind of heavy. If you were to try and cross another country's border that had problems, there's a chance that you're not going to leave that border with that gold. They're going to confiscate it. They don't want you to take value out of their country and move it into another. Right? We saw that in the 1920s. And so there are physical challenges with gold. And so there's this thing called the sovereign man. And the goal in the sovereign man is this. You go buy a safe and you go buy gold, and then you put that gold in the safe, and you become sovereign. Why? Because you have value that is unquestionable, and you can use that value to take care of yourself. But it's not very efficient. In fact, it's kind of slow. And gold has some really amazing attributes, but it also has some huge limitations when you enter the space of the digital world or the modern world. Gold becomes very slow, and there's some issues with it. But let's put that on the burner for a moment, and we're going to talk about Bitcoin. And so Bitcoin has digital scarcity. Does anybody know how many Bitcoins there are and will ever be? 21 million Bitcoins, right? So now we're looking at a digital asset that has a fixed supply. So now gold has a fixed supply, that's why it's valuable, and Bitcoin has a fixed supply, that's why it's valuable. And so it's also decentralized. Now, why do we care about decentralization in our value? Because what we're learning is when a government tends to control our value, they can do whatever they want to manipulate that value to either create, spend, or give it to other parties. And so we see that when they print money. What happened last time in COVID, they printed money. It was like 42 trillion or $42 billion, something like that. It was a ridiculous amount. They basically printed the exact supply we already currently had, so they doubled the supply. And then they gave it to businesses for bailouts because they had employees and they have jobs. And so when you do the math on how much money they printed, and you guys, what was the amount? So 42 billion? What was it? 4.2 trillion, right? Somewhere around there. Because I know our national debt is 35 trillion. It goes up every 100 days, right? And so a trillion every 100 days. So anyway, my point is that they're debasing the currency. And so the money that you received today is still there in your hand. Those same dollars, they just purchase less. And so that's the important thing to understand. Our 401ks and our banks and our accounts and everything, they're going up, but the prices of everything else are going down. So you're not richer, you just have more zeros in your account. And that is a fundamental problem that we should address, because it doesn't matter how much money we have. It's not money that we want, it's purchasing power that we want. We want to be able to get stuff. And so when it leaves through misappropriations or whatever, we really want to start to look at how we can hedge that. And that's what a lot of people are doing. So like I said, Bitcoin is digitally scarce, it's 21 million. It's decentralized, so it's not controlled by any one government. It's global. Also, it's highly portable and highly divisible, meaning that I can send 100 million Bitcoin to China, and it doesn't require a plane, guards, thousands of dollars for shipping, money, and the risk of it being lost along the way. If it's on the blockchain and I send it, it's going to go, and it's going to go in about a few minutes, and that money will physically be out of my hands and in their hands on that digital network. This is a revolution, you guys. Does anybody know how long our settlements are taking these days in the banks? Does anybody know what a chargeback is? Have you ever used a credit card? So when you use a credit card, if you don't pay it or something like that, they can charge back. Or you say, hey, I didn't make this purchase, and then they can charge it back to the vendor, and the vendor can actually lose that money that you gave them. You can run off with their product, just lie. And there could be all these chargebacks, which is why insurance requires the credit card companies to hold such high interest. They have to compensate for the loss that they are constantly receiving. Credit cards are a hole that are constantly leaking value of our system because of theft and the inability for it to integrate properly with Web3. What I mean by that is there's no security and no way to prove who you are online when you have a credit card. You stick in the credit card, you put in the name, put in the address, put in the code and everything, and you hit send, and that purchase is made. And so that vendor didn't look at you. Remember what they used to do? They used to take your card, sir, and look at you and, oh, okay, yeah, that's you can use it. They don't do that anymore. They just let you make those purchases. And so security is really low when it comes to making purchases globally and on the web. And so because of that loss, that's just another fountain of money that leaves us in the form of scams, manipulation. And the American dollar is also used in probably, or the majority of all nefarious activity. Why? Because it's the #1 currency in the world, right? And so when we start to see things mimic this and start to apply itself to the new Web3 environment, when we start to see it diffuse nefarious activity and bad actors because they can't usurp it, they can't usurp the tech, we start to see some really interesting potential for where value can be and remain safe in the future. And that's what this is all about. We're moving from gold to dollars to Bitcoin. And that's what's happening right now globally, because a lot of other countries don't want to receive our dollars either, because it matters to them if we buy a trillion tons of crude and we go print American dollars and say, here you go. We got plenty, we'll just print more. We're giving them actually fake money, but they're giving us a real product, and that's the mechanism that's been turning around right now, especially when we debase the value. They're like, wait a minute, you gave us all that money, and then last year you printed 41 or 42 trillion dollars. Now our money is worth less. It's worth less, but that product we gave you is still valuable. In fact, more valuable. And so this is why other countries are moving away from the dollar. And so who knows about the announcement that was made about the Saudi prince that hosted our petrodollar over the past 50, 60 years? Are you guys even aware of this? So they announced that they're no longer going to use the petrodollar. They're moving to BRICS. Moving to another.
That's kind of a fallacy too, because a lot of that's based on Chinese yuan and a lot of other countries that are not economically stable. I think BRICS is nonsensical.
Well, BRICS started out 20 years ago nonsensical and unreal. Now they possess 40% of the global landmass and resources.
Right, but as soon as any of those countries, especially Saudi, sells oil, let's say they sell a ton of oil in yuan or whatever currency they sell it to, they immediately convert it to dollars.
No, that's what you're misunderstanding, right?
That's another story.
Yeah.
Because everybody keeps taking China for granted, but China keeps coming in, swooping in all these resources.
Right.
Oil.
The point of his statement is he thinks that they're converting it to the American dollar in the end, and that's stopping. The whole reason they've moved on is because they're utilizing BRICS, and BRICS just announced its own monetary system. And it's by weight of gold and 6 other asset classes, and the dollar's not in it. So incorrect at this point. It was correct probably a year ago or 6 months ago, but as of the last 3 months, they've made these announcements and these changes, and they will not be converting into the American dollar. And that's our biggest problem, because we just lost as a country $2.8 trillion coming into our economy from crude purchases alone, not including the deal we used to get on crude. Now we actually have to buy it. So we're not losing 2.8 trillion. We're losing more like 7 trillion. Now, does anybody know how many gold reserves we have in our vault right now? We'll cover that in a minute, because it's really scary. Anyway, so scarcity, supply, and control. So why are we here? Once again, we're here because we know that the world is navigating off of the American dollar because we debase it, and that means they lose. And they said, no, I don't want to play that game anymore. I want my money to retain its value. I want a fixed asset supply that's globally accepted, that nobody can crush or mess with, and that's starting to resemble Bitcoin, because everybody can audit it, everybody can purchase it, you can self-custody it, you guys can hold actual Bitcoins in your own home with no government authority. You can cross a border with it, and you can exchange it in another country. This is power, okay? This is power. So I'm teaching you guys today to recognize this power, and later, hopefully, you'll meet with me, and we will sit down, and I will help you guys construct private wallets. And I will teach you how to acquire these assets, and I will teach you how to move these assets into these wallets, and so you can have your own money in your home. And this is akin to the old days of when they used to buy a bar of gold, and they used to hide it under their mattress. It's the same concept. Nobody can take it from you unless they rip it from your cold, dead hands, right? Because nobody's taking your money. So what's really interesting is gold, if you start to compare the environment, gold scarcity is at 85%, and the supply control is at 50%, which means you have zero control to know how much there is as far as supply or demand versus who's shipping what where. In fact, we don't have any of the records, but with Bitcoin, you know what the scarcity is by 100%, and the supply and control you are aware of 100%. You can go to any market and check out Bitcoin, and you can see what is out there right now. You can see what is trading and what is not. And so this environment, all of a sudden, storing value becomes far more honest, far more easy, and eliminates all the barriers that money and other equities have put in front of us. There's no middleman, is what we call it. It's you and the Bitcoin. And so gold scarcity, like I said, known reserves. It's determined by the amount of gold that's been mined in the ground, but it's still, we don't know if it's economically feasible. We don't know if AI is going to make, I can make a bot, I can mine all this gold, and we can just double our gold supply in 10 years with robotics or something, right? Yeah, or an asteroid could hit the Earth. I mean, there's 1,000 things we could do, but The problem is it's not fixed, it's ambiguous. Bitcoin is absolute, it is fixed. And so it has a predictable supply, no additional discovery like gold, right? What is what is, which means right now you guys are the inception group for Bitcoin. Nobody has ever seen this asset class in human history. And right now they just announced that Bitcoin is competing for value itself. So that means you guys, your generation, you will be the ones to get it, hold it, and you will launch value within your family line forever. Because how do you move $400 trillion into 21 million? It makes a very expensive Bitcoin at some point. In fact, they're estimating about $1 million Bitcoin by 2030. Does anybody think Bitcoin will? The Fed, government entities, evaluators, investment firms, ARK Invest. Yeah, let's pull it up. Oh, let me see. Here, pull it up. Go ARK Invest predicts Bitcoin price. Yeah, ARK Invest predict Bitcoin. BlackRock, ARK Invest. There's BlackRock. Yeah, they're buying Bitcoin now. So the trick of the matter is it takes a while for people to recognize this stuff because there's a lot of rails in the way of big business in evaluating certain things. But you and I, we're allowed to grab a book, read, research, all independently, which means we are more agile than a large business when it comes to the gathering and accumulation of these new fixed asset classes. So it's not unreasonable that we figured out faster than big business, okay? And then they have to contact their board. They have to make changes to their what do they call it? Their thing that they follow, their business model. And then, yeah, once they add that to the policies, then they can build the wallet, then they have to learn about the tech, then they move the money, then they have to get the money out and move it. So it takes them much longer than us. We can learn about it, download Cash App, buy Bitcoin right now. About 30 seconds. And so what makes that very interesting is that for once in history, we are actually moving ahead of big business, at least a small group of individuals that are getting involved in this. And so we have that advantage right now. So Bitcoin was made for the digital world. Gold portability rates at about a 20 because it's heavy, cumbersome. Like I said, I mentioned that before. It's portable. It's not as portable as Bitcoin. It's not as easily divisible. You have to send it somewhere. It has to be broken down by a smith. And Bitcoin is highly portable. The reason why Bitcoin has a low score in its hacking is because people don't know how to manage their crypto. Blockchain can't, in essence, be hacked with any current technology that we have. It's using SHA-256 hash encryption. And if you guys understand what this means is these numbers equal, I can give you an answer, but to recalculate that answer, to go back to compute power would be so ridiculous. You would never be able to discover the original key that created this. And so it makes Bitcoin really secure. And we've done some comparisons and models, and we've talked about the theory behind it. And to break a blockchain wallet would be like having a little girl with a bow and arrow on the planet Earth, and she's trying to shoot a molecule with that bow and arrow somewhere in the universe. And so her arrow is never going to get close. The resources that we currently have are the equivalent to a little girl trying to reach a molecule near Pluto. And so when you consider how often your data gets leaked, when you consider the hacks that we experience now, you have to ask yourself, I'm sitting in an environment that I grew up in, that developed around me. Is there a better environment that I might want to consider looking into? Because these statistics don't lie, these numbers don't lie, and it makes this a very interesting hedge against our current situation. And so we want to make sure that we're really understanding this deeply. So physical storage of gold is expensive, right? If you were to buy gold, you were to buy a safe if you have more than 2 ounces, right? You don't want to have more than 2 ounces sitting on your desk. You want to have like a safe. And if you go over like 3 or 4 ounces, you probably want to have it in a vault. And if it's in a vault, now you're back to counterparty risk because you've hired somebody to hold your gold for you. And now there is a third party sitting in between you and your value. But you could hold 100 million in Bitcoin in a Trezor. You could lock that in a safe. And even if they stole the Trezor, if you got to your information, your backups in time, you could move that money out of the Trezor before they could hack it. And so a lot of people are like, oh man, I store my Trezor with my C phrase. It's a bad idea. You make sure you store those things separate because each one of them are different mechanisms. One is to access safely and one is to restore without question. And we'll explain that as we go deeper into this series. But so physical gold is cumbersome in this new tech world. Bitcoin is lightweight, fast, and accruing in value as more countries start to pour their value into it before it diminishes. Because right now we're in a competition. America's looking for an excuse to print more dollars as they issue them out to the world. And the world is saying, hey, they're printing more dollars. We need to buy assets. And so we see China is buying a lot of real estate in the US right now. Is that true? I heard that. I heard China is trying to buy a lot of real estate in the US.
Trying to get do whatever they can to get the money out of their country before it devalues anymore.
Right. And so they're doing the same thing. And so what's really interesting is they're purchasing, I just heard this, they're purchasing a ton of real estate.
A lot of money in the Middle East.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot less questioning of purchasing as compared to trying to buy real estate here.
Right. And so these are sophisticated moves that people are making right behind your awareness. You don't realize what's happening, but they do. And they're doing it because they know, which means should you guys be making some sort of move? And this is the big question. Do we really need to act on this information? And what worries me is I've been doing this for 9 years, you guys. I've been researching blockchains, how they work, layer ones, how they treat the individual specifically, because it really matters about the individual. When you walk up to your blockchain with your wallet and you start to transact, what is it like? Does it cost a lot? Does it take a lot? Is it risky? Has it been hacked? Are you getting good returns? Or are you just holding the money? Is there a fixed supply or is there an infinite supply? Can they print more of it just like they're printing the dollar and devalue it over time? Now, of course, they won't do it today, but in 10 years maybe. So you have to ask yourself, what am I doing in this space? And evaluating what these things are and where the value lives really becomes the most important concept. And so right now, the big thing is control. If you hold a bar of gold, sir, you are in control. If you hold a dollar, the government is in control because they can print more dollars and devalue it, or they can freeze your bank account. Did anybody hear about some truckers getting their bank accounts frozen? You guys hear about that?
Yep, during COVID.
During COVID? What was going on? Do you guys remember what they were storming?
Canada.
Oh, Canada. That's right. Sorry, Canada. So do you remember the truckers? And they were, what were they doing? They were doing something the government didn't like. And so what did the government do? Froze their accounts. They had to disperse. They could not assemble because they had no money. Money is power. Money is freedom. When a government can stop us from assembling, there is a problem. Yes, sir. Question.
Let's just say that there were a few big players in the game, like the International Monetary Fund,
IMF, yep.
The European Bank, Bank of London. And they just decide that the stability of their currencies is at risk with Bitcoin.
These are multinational banks you just mentioned. Yeah.
And cryptocurrencies. So they come out and announce that any bank that converts cryptocurrency into their currency will be excluded from the SWIFT system.
I'd say great, because the SWIFT system is completely horrible. In fact, SWIFT needs to die. It takes like what? They charge them a percentage, they lose the money half the time, and the settlement is way off. So,
but if you could no longer convert Bitcoin into something that could buy you an Android,
then it would be a problem. Correct. I would humbly agree with that. But the fact of the matter is most of the world won't do that. The fact,
actually, I think most countries are giving up to the US dollar because of SWIFT.
Exactly.
Because of all those sanctions.
Right.
Yeah.
This is a perspective that has taken me quite a while to understand. And it took me a long time. I had to really take off my hat and I had to put myself in a different position and say, wait a minute, I don't live like the rest of the world. I just don't. The average world lives off of $5 a day and they don't have access to banking. And they're the majority, my friend. And so it doesn't matter what the government does, the people will choose what they want their value in. And right now, for some reason, in this awakening moment, the world wants transparency, no government hand, and they want to be able to hold their value. And you're not feeling it because you live in America. The money that the world uses is the dollar. You're the richest person in the world by top 2%. So you don't have the perspective that I've taken many years to try to absorb. And that is the perspective of the individual that makes 20 bucks a month. the individual that doesn't have ID, the individual that went to high school, the government shifted, the high school shut down, and now he can't prove he got his high school diploma. Blockchain solves these problems. And it solves them by the trillions of people, not the millions in the US, but the trillions. And so when you consider value is migrating into this event, you have to say, well, I'm going to be the last domino to fall because my money is the money that represents the world. So I'm not going to feel this pinch until everybody else has moved into blockchain. And when my value starts really getting stripped, that's when I'll move. And guess what? It may be too late at that point. You may not have as much money as you had before or value in that point.
Maybe I'm mistaken.
I'm sorry?
I say maybe I'm mistaken, but crypto exists as a monetary unit at the whim of the governments.
No, it's not a monetary unit. Crypto, a blockchain, is a communication grid.
I know
Yeah.
blockchains.
Yeah. So
I
it's.
don't know how the system works.
I'm sorry?
I have a degree in economics.
I love that.
I work on Wall Street.
This is
I
great.
work for the Rothschilds. I've been at the Treasury in New York attending T-bill auctions. I know exactly how the system works.
That's awesome.
And the risk is that the central banks, in order to protect the monetary value of their currencies and their economies, will put a limit on the cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin. If you want to use Bitcoin to buy a land in Chad, go right ahead. But they limit the banks from converting Bitcoin into euros or dollars in order to protect their currency stability.
Right.
In which case, Bitcoin could end up being the Dutch tulips of the 21st century.
Interesting.
Well, yeah, I think
Why they so far didn't do it? They should.
Because at the moment,
He's
it's
arguing for
more
CBDC like we talked about earlier.
I understand. I love.
I think the question that's being asked is that government at any point in time in the future can decide, okay, you know what, it's gone far enough, we're not going to allow conversion.
And just stop it.
Or,
Yeah.
or they could say, we're going to create our own digital currency, here it is.
Right.
So you could use Bitcoin or you could use the
CBDC.
officially sanctioned digital currency. And also, another thing that talking about moving the money across the country or whatever, you know, they still haven't, as far as I understand, aren't imposing all the taxation related issues with
Correct.
Bitcoin and capital gains and whatnot.
Correct.
And I think people, especially young people, they're hey, I bought Bitcoin, I make money, I'm gonna spend it.
Right.
And they're doing that, they've been doing that for years, but if they choose to at any point in time, they could retroactively reinforce all the capital gains and they're gonna be in a lot of, you know,
True.
So how do you get yourself reassured of that, you know, that's not gonna happen?
This is the interesting concept, and the people that are deeply embedded and grew up in it, they have the hardest time seeing it because it's the only world they know. But the fact of the matter is can you guys tell me where the nearest furrier is? Do you guys even know what a furrier is? Because they were really popular in 1910. A furrier, the guy that changes horseshoes for horses and carts. Those guys don't exist anymore. Their market died. What they created and what they utilized their entire life all of a sudden had no purpose, and so it diminished. And so what we're looking at is an attrition. Who went to Blockbuster and rewinded their tape last night? Or did you watch Netflix? We are looking at a very interesting thing where technology is eliminating, and we were talking about it, all of the bulk in between, all of the infrastructure that was required will disappear over time, just like Blockbusters disappeared over time. Now, I'm not saying they will ghost and be gone. They will augment, but they won't be the same thing they were. And it's really important that you understand that very basic fact. There will be different purposes for banks. We will see banks in a different light. They will serve a different purpose, and it's not going to be the same system you grew up with. It can't be, because we don't need half of the infrastructure to run these networks.
You're using the logic of this time is different. This new thing is going to stick. But then again, you know, NFTs, what happened?
NFTs are a use case on blockchain.
What?
NFT. So like I said earlier,
so it was scarce, right?
No. No.
Yes, it was.
No.
Yeah, you're talking about Bored Apes. That's one. But that's not what all NFTs are.
It had kind of very similar characteristics. It was scarce because you could create. You know, I could decide. Okay, I'm just going to create one NFT of this thing. There's only one in the universe. Okay. And then they all. Of course, they're all scarce. So that's exactly market. So
I want to hear this question.
That's kind of the argument I'm using, which is you're saying Bitcoin is scarce, and that's why it has value.
Yes.
And what I'm saying is NFT, you could create one of whatever NFT you're creating. It's unique, it's one. It's it's mostly the scarce thing in the universe.
Right.
Unless you get it to zero.
Yeah.
So, but it had some value at some point when people were having a tulip moment.
Right.
But now they don't.
No, it's missing the fungibility component. So you're talking about a baseball card, a Babe Ruth baseball card, highly niche. Okay, so we can print NFTs, which are the equivalent to baseball cards. This is not utility. This is niche. Okay, this is not supposed to have value. It's supposed to have rarity, and supposed to be interested. Yeah. So value is different.
ICOs. They had a whole bunch of different ICOs going on.
Scams. Yeah.
And
Most.
It's only a scam if everybody loses money. so you could create an ICO that mimics Bitcoin in every aspect of it. You know, 21 million cap, and everything the same as Bitcoin.
Right.
And you could even call it, instead of Bitcoin, you could call it a Bytecoin, whatever.
Okay.
And then you could say, oh, you know what? I'm just gonna make it perfectly the same as Bitcoin, except I'm just gonna have 20 million instead of 21 million. It's even that's
right, like 6-minute abs instead of 7-minute abs, right?
And anybody can do that tomorrow.
Right.
But there would have to be people that agree that there's value.
Thank you.
Okay.
Fungibility again.
So agreeing to have value.
Everybody's already agreed that Bitcoin has value.
That's not what was everybody. Everybody that's buying it.
Everybody who is into Bitcoin agrees that it's worth whatever it's worth.
But everybody that's not in Bitcoin
is converting it to dollars.
That's old school thinking.
Well,
but you agree that everybody that doesn't.
There are countries that accept Bitcoin as currency.
For such a small group, it's intense. Hey, no, it's okay.
The SWIFT system, the government has already instituted its, FlexPay or their version. SWIFT is outdated and I don't want to say obsolete, but it's ripe for innovation.
You can say that.
What is in fact happening
right now. And the truth of the matter is guys, this is no longer a debate. I'm sorry, if you're here to debate the validity of Bitcoin or crypto, if it's going to, come, this is not your space. It's coming. There's already 40 ETFs. We have multiple firms nationwide.
Actually, I'm here to be convinced.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and so
bring out skepticism.
Right.
For you to explain to me.
I love it.
Tell me that it's no longer up for debate because it's proven.
My point is that I'm not going to spend the time in the room to prove it. You can go do that research. It's already been proven.
Yeah. Somebody can create
fungibility again. We go back to fungibility. Everybody has to agree it's valuable. And Bitcoin has spent the last 12 years proving that.
And you say everybody, but it's not everybody.
It's everybody who understands, because the fact of the matter is
it's like saying everybody agrees that the world is flat. Everybody who agrees that the world is flat agrees that it's flat. Everybody who doesn't, they don't agree.
The reason why it has value is because it has utility. That's the reason.
You just contradicted yourself, because everybody agreed to have value, and now you're saying it has value because it has utility.
They agree it has value because it has utility.
Right.
Imagine if I didn't contradict myself at all. Microsoft was going to use.
But I could create exact same Bitcoin, clone that has same utility.
Why would you
use clone Microsoft though? Well, like on Windows. Why would you use the?
How are you going to do that? How much is it going to cost you to do that? It's going to cost you more to do that to try and create a smaller supply. Like the analogy you used a little while ago about shooting.
That's whole phenomenon was called ICO, and people try to do that.
And ICOs make what? Let's be real. What is the average ICO pool?
It's just that Bitcoin and Ethereum, they're the last two standing.
Well, that's because they have utility. A lot of the other meme.
No, that's not true. There were many other coins that probably had more utility than Bitcoin. It's just that people kind of just grab. It's like
Name one.
Swift
Wait. That's an important statement. Name one.
A lot of coins went under during COVID because it was just hype and there was nothing behind it, and that's why everything got hyped up. And
what's something that's behind Bitcoin that those things didn't have?
The value preservation.
The other ones too. Why not?
They're not. They don't. They do me a favor, you guys. It is very, very simple. Check the supply on your tokens. If it's a fixed supply, you can preserve value. But it can't just be a fixed supply. It can't just be that. It's more complicated than that. It has to be decentralized. So it has to have a fixed supply, has to be decentralized.
Why wouldn't ICO fail if it's identical to Bitcoin, but just 20 million?
By definition, it can't be
first mover advantage. It's just basic capitalism.
Now that's a different answer to everything else. And I could latch onto that as well. I'm just trying to understand.
It's the same example that I gave you to the Microsoft versus the clone Microsoft.
So it's more about first mover advantage.
Who's going to put in energy?
So is there about first mover advantage that Bitcoin has that everyone else?
I don't think I would say it's. I wouldn't say it's first mover advantage.
So I'm trying to understand.
I would say.
I'm just trying to understand.
That's okay. Here's how I can help you understand it. It's very simple. We can put digital information in a space and encrypt it to where nobody can alter it and everybody can validate it. There is no system. There is no system on the planet you can do that except for on a blockchain. And now, if you have the right type of blockchain with the right type of security model, because a lot of them use different code, different security models. If you have the right kind of security model, you can actually deploy that globally, and the rest of the world can start to validate it and utilize it. Now, I didn't create Bitcoin, and I don't think like the rest of the world, but here are the facts. The world is migrating this way. Why do I know this? Because the asset's growing 200% per year for the last 12 years, and it hasn't missed a beat. So you guys may debate it. I'm not going to debate it because the money's moving so fast, it retired me. Retired me in 5 years. So it's moving and it's not stopping. And so I get really good at charts, and I start reading and I start getting heavily into government spending, businesses, their allocations, retirement firms, and what they're doing. Because I want to know where the money's moving. So we see that it took 10 years to get $2 trillion in infrastructure built into Bitcoin. What do I mean by 10 years and $2 trillion? 10 years. 9 years ago, I was buying Bitcoin. You know what it took? I had to write an escrow letter. I had to send that to China. It took 15 days, and then they would send me Bitcoin in 15 days after. So I'd have to wait 30 days. So 10 years, infrastructure, $2 trillion. I went from that to being able to grab my phone, download Cash App, hit buy, and buy Bitcoin. That's the 10-year infrastructure growth. Now guess what? It scales. Every single person in here has the ability to do the same thing now. And so businesses, companies, governments, retirement firms, they are all looking at this asset class saying, we need it because you can't debase it like the dollar. So I don't know, it could be Bitcoin, it could be Bitcoins, it could be whatever, but whatever it was that happened 10 years ago, it's beyond you or me. The decision was made that the world is starting to see this as valuable. And so if they're going to see it as valuable, you have two options. You can either close your eyes, say I don't want to acknowledge it, or you can open your eyes and learn a little bit and try to hedge against what's going on in our economy. The choice is yours. And like I said, the debate, it's arbitrary. The train is moving whether you want to get on it or not. And yeah.
Let
me hop in
Same
for a
answer.
second if I can. Because I think that, in a sense, I mean, I've been here a few times, so I'm not completely new to it. But in having this discussion, I would say with respect, you shot, both of you kind of shot yourself in the foot, or but whatever is the term, when you said everybody. Because I quickly looked up crossing the chasm. Right? And I think it'd be more helpful to the discussion if you use some of that terminology about...
I like that.
About...
many.
Adopters.
Innovators,
right.
early adopters.
I like that better.
And then, what is it? Equity, majority. Because...
Otherwise, we're speaking for everybody and we're not.
Right.
I like that. Thank you. So I apologize for misspeaking. I don't mean everybody, but many and enough are. And it's migrating this way. And so you guys, like I said, my goal is to teach you guys how to build a private wallet and how to acquire a physical asset. Debating the validity, that's a fun talk. We should get some beers and we should talk about it. That's fun. But the fact of the matter is it's here. It exists. There was 14 ETFs in April. Now there's 45 ETFs going into the US stock exchange. So the money is going to be moving. And if the money's moving, there's opportunity. And you can either utilize the US dollar, which is being debased, or you can play with a little bit of opportunity in a new arena that's competing for value itself. It's really up to you. I'm sold and I'm doing it and I'm teaching it. If you guys want to come in here and debate it, we could do that like some other time and really go into the brass tacks, and we could look at the history and we could look at the growth and we could look at all the players. But the fact is, BRICS, they've announced their new monetary system. They're doing it by weighted gold and blockchain, crypto. That is 41% of the landmass on Earth is controlled by BRICS and their resources, and they want blockchain. So, like I said, it's a really exciting time to be here. And the trick is to identify what is valuable and what is not, because just like you said, there's been thousands and thousands of scams, so the confusion is real, right? You probably heard 1,000 things bad about it. Why? They don't want you to buy it?
I mean, if you said it's valuable because there's enough people that think it's valuable,
well, no.
And there's enough infrastructure built around this thing that people think is valuable, and that's why it's even more valuable, then I totally buy it. And if you say you don't believe in it, but you can still, buy it and ride up the whatever.
You can do that too.
Well, that's perfect. Yeah. But if you start saying that, something about technology, something about scarcity, then I can come up with counter examples that just didn't work.
This is a really important thing and this is where your disconnect in knowledge is, because Bitcoin is finite. It's a fixed asset class. So you can't make more. Okay, good.
And what I said was I can make it more finite, and it should have more value because you said it's value because it's finite.
First mover advantage, and then we said.
I know.
Right.
It's all the same. But that's right.
I think what a lot of people don't understand is that whatever coin we're talking about, it is a fuel, a mechanism to pay for whatever happens on that blockchain. What happens on the Bitcoin blockchain is a transfer of value. That's
correct.
it.
That's
what blockchain. That's what Bitcoin.
Well, what I'm saying is that doesn't value.
Let me finish. Okay. With respect to Ethereum, for example, the reason why Ethereum has its value is because people can build software to run on the Ethereum network and even use different coins on top of it
to trigger actions.
Which allows software to run and people to operate businesses, and there's a cost to that. And that cost is determined by what it does. It might have to do with the amount of information that it's able to transfer and how fast, or what the software does on that platform. Another way to say what I'm saying is that each blockchain is its own internet, right?
Correct.
And so that's why different coins have different values, is because what they're able to accomplish with it, why it costs what it costs to operate on that blockchain.
And that's why it's keenly important to understand what you're investing in. Not all coins are the same. And some people hear a narrative and they're like, oh, I'm going to buy this coin. But they never looked at the underlying mechanisms of whether it was a fixed supply, whether it's decentralized, whether it treats the individual nicely when they use it. Does it store their money? All those things. They matter.
So I think of things even simpler than that. To me, the perceived value gets created because of some balance between supply and demand. And that's kind of very fundamental way a lot of economists and a lot of people think about stuff. Mm-hmm. There's no demand, there's no value. Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah. And the biggest demand right now is preserving value.
All the pricing that we have on Bitcoin today, right now, at this moment, when you look at the phones, is purely based on supply and demand. It really is. How much is being sold and how much is being bought. And to say otherwise, to say, oh, it's because this has this value, there's no intrinsic value when associated with either one of them. That's what I'm trying to apply.
Right, but what I'm saying is, if you have a business and you need to run your business on the internet, and your business involves data or computations, then you need to use whatever is available on that platform, right? So there's whoever created that software is going to have to be compensated in some way. They don't make that software for free, and that's essentially the reason why Bitcoin is valued, right? Is because to solve the equation to get the block requires a tremendous amount of energy input, and that is translated to the value of whoever solves that equation.
It's preserved value is what it is. And it gets tough, it gets complicated, and if you guys need help or you want more research, I'm happy to do a Zoom with you and sit down and we can go over this in tooth and comb detail. But really the big deal is if this is so exciting and if it's enough to rally a group and really create all this contention, right?
I mean, neither of us are trying to be, aggressively, pro, what we're talking about, but we're excited because we understand where things are going. Technology is going to win this time. The dollar has a lot of inherent flaws, but our government can't allow it to be manipulated because the world standard economy is based on the dollar. Right. But that said, there's a lot of countries in the world, their economies are shit, their currencies are shit, and that's why they're either going to come up with their own CBDC, which is a stable coin, or tap into
Bitcoin itself.
For example, the Bitcoin network, like El Salvador did, and start using that because it's a means to stabilize an economy and also remove the human element, which is the whole problem.
The manipulation point.
Whenever there's a person involved and they realize they can gain an advantage because they know something or have control that somebody else doesn't, that's when a human by nature will do that. That's really...
That's really what we're trying to hedge against. That's what we're trying to hedge against, is that third-party manipulation or that counterparty risk. And so really all I'm trying to say is you can buy gold, you can buy silver, and you can buy Bitcoin. And all of them possess the same attributes, but Bitcoin is in a growth market. It's competing for value. It's growing 200% a year. It's more secure and easier to move than gold. And so if you look at all these attributes, you say, hey, you know what? This might be something interesting to get involved in. Now we'll talk about the debt because we understand that the reason why we're migrating into a global fixed asset class is because our current economy is kind of, not doing as awesome as we'd hoped. But the total assets approximately in the Federal Reserves as of December of last year, that's less than 1 year old audit, is 7.8 trillion. Yet our national debt is 35 trillion. And that was as of June 24. So if we were to spend every ounce of gold we had, our country is in debt. That's how we operate. And so that's okay, but what we need to do is start actually possessing value, utilizing value, and becoming a green country where we actually have assets. Now, how do you empower an entire country? You allow everybody to have gold in their house. You make them all wealthy. You have them all take assets that have value, so the country itself is rich. A country isn't rich if the government is rich. The government is rich if the government is rich. So how do we empower ourselves to have a strong country? We have to have opening portals that teach us how we can do this. And that's why I love America. I'm an American. I love America. I will be the first one to tell you this is the greatest country in the world. You know why? Because I can actually stand here and talk to you about this without being shut down or silenced. That's freedom, gentlemen. And when I can introduce you to a global asset that's trading around the world, despite opinions, that's interesting as well. So let's take this opportunity to rethink about our current situation. That is the goal of this. What are we into right now? What does the environment act like? How does it treat us? We give our money to the banks. How much interest are we getting in return right now?
3, which is less than inflation.
Yeah. But I mean, I think we're getting what, 1%? Are we getting 1% return?
Well, I think our banks are 3%.
Some banks are trying to compete now.
Are they starting to raise it up? That's good, because this is what it should do. It should drive competition, right? And we should see a balancing. Right now, we were talking about arbitrage earlier, were we not, guys? There's an imbalance in systems, right? And what does that do? When we see an arbitrage opportunity, the system will balance itself out. And so if we see banks falling far behind, they're going to start to try and be more competitive. And if they're going to be more competitive, that's better for the consumers. But that's not the point. The point is that there is a new asset class called crypto, blockchain, Bitcoin. And our goal is to teach you guys what it is, how it works, and how to hold it, because we understand that we were born in America, we won a war, and then we had the Bretton Woods Agreement, and everything was pegged on our dollar. And now after about 100 years, or not 100 years, but like 60, 70 years, we're starting to migrate away from that. And it is very, very difficult to think outside of a box that you've never been out of. Very difficult. I've seen people swear they know what's going to go on, but they won't step out of where they are to really evaluate. And so what we find is people are measuring with the wrong type of ruler or metric. And that is the biggest mistake you can make right now, is trying to take the American ruler with the American dollar and economy and measure Bitcoin, because it doesn't add up. The math doesn't work, because now we're talking global, we're talking lightweight, we're talking super secret, highly secure. And we've never seen that before in a money. So, you guys, like I said, the conclusion is this. While both gold and Bitcoin serve as value stores of wealth, Bitcoin's digital nature provides a unique advantage in terms of portability, divisibility, security. And the world moves increasingly towards digital solutions. Bitcoin's role as a modern alternative to gold becomes more pronounced every day. How do we know it's becoming more pronounced every day? Because when I was looking at Bitcoins, they were hundreds of dollars. Now they're thousands of dollars, tens of thousands of dollars. And the estimates for what's moving into it will bring it closer to 100, 250, and $1 million by 2030. And that's not a guess. It's because these hedge funds have to announce what they're going to be investing to their firms and to their people. And so they've put on the table, this is what we're putting into this environment. Vote yes. So we know $20 trillion plus is moving into Bitcoin, and that was as of last year, the estimate. Now there's 40 more ETFs that came on board, and more companies are starting to do it. And now we're seeing a presidential candidate that's interested in it, and his vice president is very interested in it. And so we're starting to see the momentum start. Please, please open your eyes. Change is afoot, you guys. Things are changing. And this is our opportunity to get on the next internet, the next Netflix, the next Yahoo, the next Google. Why are these important? Because these are all globally used. It's not a product, it's not a car or a toy. This is a communication grid that wraps around the planet that nobody's controlling. It's very important to look at it from a different lens to figure out where the value resides, because it is different and it is unique and it is strange and it's not what we've done before. And so to try and look at it from a different perspective of where the value is and how it works would be the best thing that anybody could do here. So you guys, I think we're all set for the day. I'm done. If you guys have any questions, we can go from there. But we're all finished. Thank you so much. I appreciate your time. It always gets like this, you guys. I don't know what it is with blockchain. There's an intensity there, and I like it. Thank you for coming, and thank you for voicing those things. It's really important we all understand all sides of the coin. Yes, ma'am.
What wallets are you teaching people to set up?
There's so many wallets out there. My biggest goal when I teach somebody how to use a wallet is the security of the wallet. So some wallets have 12-word seed phrases, 15, 24, and some of them are made by private entities versus larger ones. So depending on the token, we would examine the wallets that you would want to pick and then figure out which one was the most secure. And then we would never use a wallet online. I have a whole thing on this, but we would ultimately get you a cold storage device, so you could be on any computer anywhere and access your funds.
Travel.
Travel, yeah, perfect.